distinguished ministers, ladies and gentlemen, dear friends of Estonia and Israel, Shalom and Tere. I'm honored to welcome you all to our virtual meet-up between Estonia and Israel on the topic of financial technologies, or shortly and perhaps more frequently heard, FinTech. Despite being geographically distant and definitely having different climate conditions, Estonia and Israel do share some common factors. Foremost, both Estonia and Israel are among the most digitally advanced countries in the world, have an enormous number of successful digital ventures. What is even more, Israel is currently the country with the highest numbers of unicorns per capita, while Estonia holds the same ranking on the scope of Europe. What are the key ingredients of Estonian and Israeli digital ecosystems that enable growth of so many unicorns? If you're eager to find the answer to this question, as well as to many other matters concerning FinTech topic, then you're in the right place. As today, we will discover FinTech ecosystems of Israel and Estonia with Mr. Shmuel Ben Tovim, the president of the FinTech community of Israel, and Mr. Tavi Tamkivi, board member of FinanceEstonia. Furthermore, we will explore success stories of digital governments with Mr. Liron Libeskind-Milian, Deputy Head of the Digital Israel, and Mrs. Nelly Leosk, Ambassador at Large at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Estonia. And finally, we will also hear the success stories of private Fintechs enterprises from Mr. Or Kapelinski, co-founder and COO at Tenorex, and Mr. Rivo Uibo, co-founder and CBO at TUM. We are also looking forward to your question after each 20-minute session with professionals. You can write a question right here on the WorksUp platform in the Q&A tool on the agenda next to each topic. Before we proceed with the high-level statements from the distinguished Minister of Foreign Affairs of Estonia, Ms. Eva Maria Limets, and the Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs of Israel, Mr. Idan Roll, I would like to encourage you to use the networking option here on the WorksUp platform. In order to contact with a potential business or public partner, just scroll through the participants and click Say Hi. Afterwards, you may chat or make a video call. Another option which we have, and it will remain until the end of the event, is the use of export. We can find both Estonian and Israeli companies that were interested in networking and have provided their contact information. So please also search for companies which are interesting for you there. As a final note from my side, let me assure that today's event is streamed via YouTube and the recording will remain publicly accessible also after the event, while WorksUp platform will remain for your networking usage for the next 3 months. I wish us all a successful event, and now let me proceed with the welcoming words of the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Estonia, Ms. Eva Maria Limets. Please, Ms. Limets, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Honorable Deputy Minister, dear business representatives, dear participants from Estonia and Israel, it is a great honor to speak here today at the first virtual business forum between Estonia and Israel in the FinTech technology. Our economies need a boost after restrictions and lockdowns. I believe that international cooperation through active business diplomacy is a vital part of this task. Due to travel and other restrictions of the current pandemic, regular visits of business delegations have not been possible. I am glad that we are taking an advantage of the online meeting format, which allows us to strengthen bilateral economic cooperation and create new business opportunities. I am particularly glad that this meeting takes place between the countries of digital nations. Together with 3 other countries, Estonia and Israel are the founding members of the D5 group. This is the group of the most digitally advanced governments in the world. Estonia and Israel are also both well known for our advanced startup ecosystem. We rank among the world's top in venture funding per capita in startup investment. We can both be proud of our unicorns. In this regard, we have a lot of common ground and common interests. Hence, I believe that all this provides favorable conditions for active cooperation between our countries and our businesses. COVID-19 crisis has clearly shown the importance of digital solutions. We call our country e-Estonia because of the high extent in which the ICT is used in business, government, and everyday life of our residents. 99% of all the public services in Estonia are available online. Even during the peak of the crisis, the state has been fully functional and continued providing public services without any disruption. Without doubt, FinTech has been an indispensable part of the success story of Estonia. Estonia ranks among the top countries in the world for having most unicorn companies per capita, as well as for being the most startup-friendly country. Among others, Estonians are known for two globally eminent FinTech unicorns, Wise, formerly also known as TransferWise, and Zigo. The entrepreneurial mindset, openness to the innovative business models, and supporting regulations are important cornerstones. They attract creative minds and investors to become part of Estonia's startup community, currently consisting of more than 1,000 companies. Among numerous startup entrepreneurs, FinTech sector accounts for 46% of the total startup turnover, which was generated in the first quarter of 2021. Ladies and gentlemen, I am confident that today's event enables us to share our experiences and strengthen bilateral cooperation. It provides new business opportunities and creates useful contacts between our companies and stakeholders. Together, we can support and champion our growing digital economies. I thank you, Deputy Minister, the speakers, all participating companies, and everyone in the audience for joining us today. I hope to warmly welcome you all in Estonia as soon as the COVID-19 situation allows, and also will be looking forward to come to Israel. Wish you all a great and fruitful meeting. Thank you once again, and stay safe.
Thank you very much, Ms. Limits, for your warm welcome. We hope as well that useful contacts will be created tonight. And now I'm honored to give the floor to the Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs of Israel, Mr. Idan Roll.
Your Excellencies, esteemed participants, ladies and gentlemen, it is my great pleasure and honor to greet you on behalf of the state and the government of Israel on the occasion of the Israel-Estonia FinTech webinar. I would like to thank the organizers for this wonderful initiative and all of our Estonian and Israeli participants for joining us today. I believe the topic of this webinar, financial technology, could not be more timely. FinTech's role in the society have become more vital than ever, even more so during the global corona crisis. FinTech as an emerging industry uses technology and innovation to improve the financial services by making them more accessible, more cost-efficient, faster, and often even more secure. It is not just a reality of today, but a way forward to the future. For the past years, Israel has established its place as one of the world's top FinTech powerhouses. The excellence of the Israeli FinTech relies on its skilled and creative human capital, its small size, which acts as a great testing ground, and the big data skills learned in Israel's elite army intelligence units. Due to its limited local market, Israeli FinTech industry has had to focus on larger global markets right from the beginning, which is also one of its great strengths. As the world's leading startup and innovation hub, Israel also has valuable expertise of high-tech and software industries, as well as cybersecurity, which is a crucial aspect in the safe delivery of financial services as well. As the Deputy Foreign Minister of Israel, I am pleased that we, as Israelis and Estonians, can come together to discuss this important topic. I believe that as two small and innovative countries, we have a lot of shared interests, mutual gains, and expertise in order to stand at the forefront of FinTech revolution. Estonia and Israel enjoy excellent cooperation in many spheres. These provide good grounds for Israeli-Estonian FinTech dialogue as well as joint projects, not just bilaterally, but also in trilateral and multilateral settings. In the end, let me wish all of us a fruitful webinar and discussions.
Thank you, Mr. Idan Roll, for your supporting contribution and encouraging notes concerning networking. We will now move on to the first pair of speakers, represented by the professionals who are very well familiar with their country FinTech communities. Please don't forget to ask your questions in the Q&A part of this part of the agenda. So the first one to start are Mr. Tom Kiwi and Mr. Ben Tovim, who will be very glad to provide you with all the answers. And Mr. Shmuel Ben Tovim will be the first to start the session. Please, Mr. Shmuel, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. It is really a great pleasure to join this joint session of Estonia and Israel. And I'm very happy to be joined by so many friends in Estonia and in Israel. We have signed the MOU with FinanceEstonia a couple of months ago. And this is really the first fruit of our cooperation, which will, I'm sure, bring about more good results for both sides. Estonia is a brand name well known in Israel. And as we are very used to people from all around the world looking into Israel and trying to learn the secrets of what made Israel the startup nation, we here in Israel look at Estonia and Estonia as a role model for the relationship between government and the people providing ICT and best services that can be available to make life easier for all concerned. And this is really the essence of this meeting, to try to learn from each other. And I can assure my Israeli colleagues that there is much more to learn from Estonia than you ever imagined. Israel's FinTech industry is quite developed and successful. We count over 600 FinTech companies in our small country. And as was mentioned already before, we are leaders in the number of unicorns, for sure, per capita, that came about from Israel and are serving populations all over the world. We still have a long way to go in our own country. Our regulations are not totally up to date, and we are working on it. And we are not satisfied with the number of startups that we have, because we think there's much more we can do. And we are trying to do it in our FinTech community by providing mentorship to startups, by connecting them with the international community, exactly as we do today, and helping them connect with new sources of funding and investments. And at the same time, work together with our regulators to improve the legal system in which we operate, and to make all this good innovation also available, fully available to Israeli customers, so he gets the full choice of services with competitive prices. We are also blessed with a quite extensive network of international agreements like the one that we have with FinanceEstonia, and I really want to congratulate my friend Tavi and the rest of the FinanceEstonia team who worked so hard to bring about this event. And the same goes to our team of international relationship, who is doing a great job in expanding our relationship all over the world. I think that Honorable Minister Limitz was very right in mentioning the COVID period as a time of challenge. On one hand, it really limits the personal interaction. We were not able to travel so much and to receive guests as we like to do. But on the other hand, I think that the COVID period has contributed a lot to the awareness of public decision makers and even the technology community of the necessity of developing services that can be provided over geographies and over time zones with much ease. And I'm quite sure that if you would imagine such a webinar that we are having today between Estonia and Israel just 2 or 3 years ago, we would probably look at our diaries and see when we can travel to which direction, and not move much further than that. And today we see it very natural of having such an encounter. Of course, we would like to meet in person, and we will do it in the future, but it doesn't stop us for being advanced. The same goes to the FinTech area. In the FinTech industry, more people are more aware that they can do the best, can get the best services at the best prices by overcoming old habits and trying to connect electronically with advanced technology, get the best services. And while in the financial services, banks, insurance, we see more and more of this happening, we still have to go a long way, and I'm talking especially about Israel when it comes to the relationship between government and citizen, when it comes to local government and citizens, and other services that are provided by the public sector. So here again, I praise Estonia of your achievements. We will try to learn a good lesson from what you have done so far, and I trust that with coming future, in the coming years, we'll have mutual visits, we'll find more areas of mutual interest, and I'm very, very happy that we were joined today by Honorable Minister Limits and also by our own Deputy Minister, Idan Roll. It enforces what the private sector is doing and should be doing, and government help and assistance will lead us the way in the future. So I wish all of you a very, very rewarding and pleasant session. Thank you, and I look forward to hearing my colleague Tavi and of course the rest of the speakers of this session. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Shmuel, and you did already a very nice introduction to the next speaker, to the Tavi Tamkivi, and I will now give the floor to Tavi. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Alan. Thank you, Shmuel, for intro. First of all, I want to actually thank our Israeli colleagues from the FinTech Association in Israel, because you reached out to us in FinanceEstonia, which I'm representing now, a few months ago, and you made a proposal that we should sign a memorandum of understanding between these two countries and between these two organizations to help Fintechs in Israel and Fintechs in Estonia to work together to find common opportunities. And I'm so happy that actually it's now materializing. So thank you for that. Here today, I'm representing as a board member of FinanceEstonia, which is connecting Fintechs and other financial institutions which are not banks here in Estonia. And I'm going to talk about landscape here in Estonia and what the Fintechs think about that. But also most of my time I'm running my own FinTech / RegTech company called Salve, which is building anti-money laundering technologies for the financial companies across the world. There is a nice digital clicker here. Few words about Estonia for the start. We are tiny nation, tiny country in the northern corner of Europe. Why should someone come to here to found a company, to found a financial technology company? Why companies from Israel might want to start their European expansion from Estonia, which is like a good excuse actually to be here. So we have more than 1,100 startups, 7 unicorns. Annual growth of the FinTech and startup sector, it's like 30%. But the nation is really small, so it's fast growing, super small, and that makes it really, really attractive for the companies who want to build their test market, who want to start from here, and expansion across the Europe and expansion across the world. And this is one of the secrets why Estonian startups and the Fintechs particularly happen to be quite successful. And then when I'm saying Estonian, it doesn't need to be Estonian originated, but there's companies who come here actually as well. So we have about 200 Fintechs, which is 1 out of 5 startups is related to financial technologies, and it's going nicely, about 50% every year. We ran research with University of Taltech and FinanceEstonia to do some learnings, to get some learnings about the Fintechs landscape. So I'm sharing sharing the results with you as well. So we have about 2,000 people employed in the fintech sector, and many of about half of the fintechs are fairly new. They're only like 3 to 5 years old in this market. And what do the fintechs value the most about Estonia being here? So naturally, the e-government, e-services, like paying taxes, like registering company, all of this e-platform that's connecting citizens and companies. That's major strength. The second thing that they brought out was that actually our government sector is really open and really friendly, and I can confirm, like from my own experience, that it's super easy to get into contact with our FSA to get their advice and thoughts about the new licenses. It is very easy to work with our Ministry of Finance, Ministry of Foreign Affairs. So the country is small, and government sector is really open. And last but not least, the companies appreciate a lot the expertise and the talent which is available here. And here I'm not talking only about technology. Like people who have built up a great world-changing technologies are here, but also experts in the like financial sector and marketing and so on as well, which are really being appreciated here. What are the sectors that are actually covered? Like what are the services that our fintechs are providing? So like there are like 3 key areas where companies are focusing on, like the digital asset exchange, like currency exchange or like other type of the exchanges. Then lending to consumers and businesses, and the third is like offering different payment services across the world. These are like the dominant sectors that our fintechs are focusing on, which you can imagine that they're like growing as sectors themselves are growing globally really fast. But there are also like a different secondary aspects, like companies who are growing up really fast, like in the insurance space, wealth management. Companies are coming up with the great products, and like that's like the second wave of the fintechs, which is coming from Estonia. And as the country is so small, then like majority of the companies are not taking it as a major market. They're just taking it as a country to establish the headquarters, country to test their products, and then expand across the world or expand across certain regions. So again, in my own experience, it took maybe like a couple of months to win the whole Estonian banking market with one of the products. But that was like great evidence that, okay, this thing that we're building is working, and now we're looking into Europe and rest of the world. And that's pretty much the mentality of the majority of the fintechs around us as well. So when you want to come to like win European market, then you first might want to come here in Estonia, win some part of the market from here, and then you get some evidence and proof that it works in the rest of Europe as well. Of course, like there are like the fintech ecosystem here is like pretty wide. Like there are different organizations which are supporting starting companies and older companies as well. Like we have FinanceEstonia, like our membership, like we have about 100 members across the Estonia. Then, as I mentioned, like FCA, our supervisory unit, is really open. Then Enterprise Estonia, which is like helping companies to find investments. Then we have like different VC funds and angel investment funds, of course, and so on. So like the ecosystem is not only about companies, but there are like different significant contributors who help companies as well. Now, like when we ask the companies to look at the future, like what are the things that are driving their interest and where they're focusing more and more, then of course like they're looking into sectors which are expanding the most, like open banking and digital currencies and like regulatory technology. Like we have Salv, we have Verif, really well-known company in Estonia, and many others who are helping other fintechs to succeed. Then of course like companies are looking to access to the funding of the seed round and then the venture capital in the A round as well. And like the funding sector is really busy here. So it's like for like angel investors, it's sometimes quite hard to find the target fintechs to invest in, because like the competition is quite significant between the investors, not vice versa as well. Yeah, it was mentioned a couple of times that we have most unicorns per capita in Europe, at least. In the world we're competing with our friends from Israel. But yeah, the point is that many of the talented people here in Estonia have worked actually in those great companies, and they are willing to share their experience with new comers. Like myself, I worked in Wise, I worked in Skype, and that gives a really good background to work with my own company. And knowing the other people who are coming from these large unicorns with tons of experience and who are helping as investors or advisors or employees, the new fintechs, that's huge value actually for the starting companies that cannot be underestimated. And the most interestingly, actually, there's new wave of companies coming, which are potentially, and I'm quite sure that they are future unicorns. They're progressing super fast. And for you as for the ones who are investors, it definitely makes sense to keep an eye on them. Today, you will hear more about the success story and progress of our friends from Toom, which is Estonian banking software provider. And then you can again listen and hear experiences from Salv, for myself, and Verif and others are really open to share their stories, how it is to win the local market. And just to finish up, as I mentioned, FinanceEstonia, we're 10-year-old union of the companies who are working in the financial sector who are not part of the banking association, and we're have about bit more than 90 members. We're helping our members to have negotiations and discussions with the government sector. We're advising our members. We're organizing events like that to help them to grow their footprint in the rest of the world. And this is the role we have. So thank you for this time, and I really expect to get your questions to answer to them. And please enjoy the rest of the day as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Tavi. And indeed, we have one question, actually two questions. One is directly for the Shmuel. I hope you are still here. And the question is, what are the biggest challenges to Israeli fintech startups at the moment? So Shmuel, do you have an answer to that?
Yeah, I would say that the biggest challenge was mentioned in my previous words is local environmental in the legal and regulatory system. And the second one, which I have not mentioned and is becoming even more prominent, is the shortage in high skilled labor. We have plenty of them in Israel, but probably not enough. And because there is a huge demand for code writers, for product managers, and other key positions in our tech companies, including the fintech area, the cost of employing them by the very simple laws of economy is going up very sharply and may endanger our competitive edge worldwide. One of the solutions that is being discussed is for us to import labor, which is not very common in the high-tech industry before, but the shortage is so acute that we could be in a situation that in few months Israel will have to allow at least a couple of thousands of people, very high skilled, from other countries to enter the country and help us, bridge the gap.
Thank you. I think we have the same problem in Estonia as well with the labor. So maybe, Tavi, can you add up on that? Is it true?
Yes, it is true. But that's actually exactly the second problem. I would have verbalized it in the same way, and this is also something that where we can share experience between the governments, but also between the fintech companies themselves, how we are overcoming these problems. Because, as you said, it's not trivial, and we were in similar position, opening our country to the rest of the experts. That's something that the companies really want to, but there is strong opposition as well, which says that it's not a good idea. But how to argument, how to go through these debates, that's something definitely we can share more experience with you as well.
Yeah, thanks. That would be great. I have another question. And maybe, like, where do you see the biggest innovation on what's coming up in the fintech? You can, like, give a space to your imagination, or maybe you have some exact ideas. So maybe, Tavi, we will start now with you.
Yes, like I'm a great fan of the Web 3.0, which is like it was used to call the cryptocurrencies world, but like Web 3.0 is like much wider, and it's not only about financial revolution, of course, but the things which are happening in that space, like offering like along everything else, offering banking services without the banks, or like real-time cash flows without having this intermediary between, which is ultimately driving down the cost, like making loans cheaper, giving opportunity to their own digital assets, like through the NTF. Like for the internet gaming, online gaming is getting more richer and richer. So it's like super exciting, which is happening in this Web 3.0 space. There are problems, there are limitations. Some technologies are riskier than others, which comes with every new technology. But like Estonia wants to be really on front line of this. I'm sure Israel sees this as an opportunity as well. In like the most innovative places in the world are looking really positively into that. So I'm a great fan of this, and I'm looking to help that area myself as well.
Thank you. Shmuel, you think it's the same, will be the same holds true in Israel, or you maybe have some other ideas as well, which you are or can share with us?
I think that basically I would say the same about Israel, but I would also mention as a big challenge is the adoption of blockchain technology into financial services. And I'm not talking only about cryptocurrencies that are very much in the news, but smart contracts and other implementation of blockchain technology. I think we are very still far from really getting the benefits from this technology. In a way, I would compare it to where we were, let's say, 20 years ago with internet. We knew it's there, but we didn't know exactly what to do with it. And today, of course, it goes without saying. I believe that in about 20 years' time from now, blockchain technology will become part and parcel of everything that we do, in particular in financial services. And I'm not sure that our imagination is developed enough to think about all the upcoming uses of this technology, but I do look at it as a very important challenge for the future.
And we have actually another question regarding almost the same topic. What about cryptocurrency? Do you think they will become more dominant in fintech industry or not? And Shmuel, maybe back to you straight away.
I think they will continue and even more so become a challenge. The latest one of them, which we discussed very extensively last month in a conference in Israel, is CBDC, the notion of having a central bank issuing a digital currency. I think this is really a revolution in mind. It makes you rewrite all the rules of fiscal and financial policies about the role of a central bank. So I think it's going to take time before we really adopt all the notions that come with this. But I think that cryptocurrencies are here to stay with us, either official or non-official. There may be some, rearrangement in the market. Maybe some currencies will do better and others won't. But I think the notion of digital currency is here to stay.
Thank you. Tavi, what do you think about cryptocurrencies? Estonia is quite a leading country in issuing crypto licenses. So do you think this cryptocurrency will be faster available here or not really?
Well, underlying technologies are already here, and everyone can use them. And if you think about financial services that are provided using different cryptocurrencies, these are exactly the same as like normal old school fiat world is offering. You can take loans, you can You can make deposits, make investments, exchange currencies, like make payments, hold your credit. And then it's just a question of like how to get it into masses, and that's where the central bank's initiatives really help actually to bring confidence. Central banks themselves are learning a lot. The European Central Bank as well is organizing or gathering ideas and practices and technologies from the members, like how digital crypto euros should look like. So this is inserting back to the market confidence that yes, these new innovative technologies that we're like building are actually recognized by the central banks also sooner or later. And of course, like there are more regulations that they need to face, like AML compliance, KYC, all of that, which is like a bit painful in the beginning. But that's like where we as a consumers and like citizens of our countries actually we want to use the services, financial services, that are like properly controlled and secured. And what is the underlying technology? Is it crypto or like non-crypto? That's like soon it will be like just no one cares about that. It's just whatever works better.
Yeah. Well, let's see what the future will bring us. And now we will move on to the... Thank you, Tavi, and thank you, Shmuel. And now we will move on to the more governmental side of the story, which exactly maybe will also open up some discussions about the cryptocurrencies and other legal aspects. And namely, we will discover the success stories behind our digital nations with Mr. Liron Libeskind-Mullian and Mrs. Nele Leusk. And first one to take the floor is Mr. Liron. Please, the floor is yours.
Thank you all. So hello, everyone, and thank you for having me. My name is Liron, and before I will introduce myself, let me say that yesterday I had the privilege of leading the Israeli delegation to the Digital Nation Conference, where together with Estonia and other 8 leading countries in the digital field, we met, discussed, shared information, and we're building working groups and collaboration for our residents. So it's a huge proud to work together with Estonia. I'm working for the Israeli government for almost 3 years now. I started as a digital transformation officer, and now I'm the deputy head of Digital Israel. Before that, I was working for more than a decade as a digital transformation product manager, VP products, as a consultant for a few companies. They are really hard here on the clock with me, and they gave me only 10 minutes to talk to you about Digital Israel and what we are doing. And as I used already 1 minute out of my 10, let me show you in the next 9 minutes, 9 different points about Digital Israel, 1 minute to each point. So let's start. Number 1, in the perspective of government time, we are still new. Digital Israel was established only 7 years ago in 2014, after a government decision in 2013, and only 4 years ago, the government approved the National Digital Program. Our main 3 goals are to reduce socioeconomic gaps, accelerated economic growth, and create a smarter and friendlier government. Number 2, in 2014, the 2 main gaps, Israel is the startup nation, but you can't feel it all the way when we talk about Israeli government services. Professor Arieli, we are working with, when he's talking about the pain of bureaucracy, he always talking about the people that needs to have trust in government services. People won't have trust if they got good and fast service in the private sector, and a minute after that, they are being asked to send fax because they can't upload more than 2 megabyte file into a government form. So our main motivation is to close the gap from the private sector and the government. But it is not enough. We also need to close the gap between the IT department and the professional department within government itself. Number 3, the main solution for these 2 gaps is human capital. First here is strengthening the skills of the current workers at the government by strengthening commitments and abilities of senior management, developing necessary skills for current workers, and implementing supporting organizational culture. The second tier is to import digital skills from outside government by bringing knowledge, work, method, and experts from the private sector to work for the government, as me. flexibility in recruiting, harnessing and managing personnel, and to do all of that by transforming the public sector into an attractive workplace for digital workers. We always need to remember that it is all about people and the rest is technology. Number 4. As I introduced myself 4 minutes ago, I am the CDXO, Chief Digital Transformation Officer. And if you need to take one thing from all what I'm saying, is that we are not doing digitalization project, we are doing digital transformation. We are changing the models and the mechanism in government bodies and local authorities in a manner which allow them to harness the digital revolution to achieve their goals. If you want to copy a form from a paper into a digital form, don't call us. There is nothing for us to do in this case, as we are not moving the bureaucracy from papers to the web. We will ask tough questions, why this form is being needed. Maybe we can cancel it. Why you are asking too many things in the form. After that, we will try to understand the inner process and to change it too. Number 5. It is not as important. We are doing service design. We are talking to people who use each one of the services we are working on. One of the main problems in the government and also in some other organization, no one is taking the time to talk with the customers. People are sitting in their offices under the floor stand and thinking they know better than their customers about the problems and the pains in the service they are providing. One of the methods we love to work with is Google Design Sprints, where we start by understanding the services and the pain users have and validate a prototype concept with real people who use these services. It's changed the way we see the service, and more than once, it's preventing us from developing bad solution, which brings me to number 6. Meet the idle team for designing digital services. We need each one of these persons to take part of designing digital services. User research, CX, UX, and UI, it is easier when the government has a style guide for the design. Content, it's really important to have a microcopy guide for how to write as a government. Data, you must have a data scientist and data analyst to keep reminding you to look at the data and the KPIs. Organizational process, someone need to know the business process if you want to re-engineering it. Technology, of course, not only to develop your service, but also to give you the insight about the technology itself. And in the center of it all, you need to have a product manager to see the full picture. What you can't see here is the lawyer, the legal team. They are important as advisors and to keep changes the regulation if needed. Number 7. For now, you may think that this is nice, but we don't have the time for it. Till 3 years ago, no one knew how many services do the Israeli government provide. The answer is a little bit more than 3,600 different services. To do a digital transformation in all of them, it will take us more than 15 years, and I need to say that the technology is changing every 2 to 3 years. So what we are doing now won't be updated in 3 years from now. This is why we are working on the patterns. This is an example for our patterns for licensings. There are 4 different options to cancel it, to move it into declaration, do it remotely, or to do the full process. And this is what we are doing with every licensing services that we have right now in the government. Number 8, unfortunately, the government is not built according to living conditions of the citizens. There is no office for divorce matters, and there is no office for matters of moving apartments. As soon as life event situation occurs, the users start asking questions, which ministry is relevant, where and how to look for the information, and most of our residents will not go straight to the government sites to look for the information. They will ask Google. And in Google, they will get a lot of answer, a lot of ministries, a lot of process, and probably quite a few question marks because of the different amount of information. We will design the future service by live events, a single point for live event. For example, when you are moving, now it's take you more than 10 hours to update all the government different ministries. In the future, it will take you less than 30 minutes to update it all. Number 9, we must be scalable. We will use the same building blocks and will not invent new capabilities for each service. Together with our partners in Government ICT Authority, we'll increase using government platforms. In case we will start designing a service, we will using the design system, the microcopy guide, and we will use some other government building blocks like the personal area and the digital identification. So that was my 10 minutes. I think that I was by the clock. Sorry if I talk too fast. I would be happy to answer your question here, or you can email me. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Liron. It was not so fast. It was fantastic, and it was interesting, how it works. Now we will continue with Mrs. Leosk, who will tell you that divorce is still not possible to do digitally in Estonia, but the moving process is much more short and easier. So please, Mrs. Leosk, the floor is yours.
Hello, everybody, and thank you for inviting me, and thank you for joining also for this important and also nice event between our two countries. So I serve as the ambassador at large for digital affairs in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, which means that I am responsible for digital foreign policy. And as we can see, because of the nature of digital technologies that do not recognize borders, digital technologies are also higher in the agenda of foreign politics. But today I won't talk much about my everyday work, but I will give a very brief overview of what is digitalization in Estonia and what have been these reasons that have taken us to where we are standing now. And a little bit also about my background before I go. I have experienced the life of many governments in digitalization, but also academia, and I hope that these experiences also give some new nuances to our digitalization in the future. So as you might know, Estonian dearest trademark is Digital Estonia, and it is indeed so that we can conduct almost every business, every service online. I would not go through all these possibilities here today. I welcome you to Estonia. I welcome you to visit estonia.com and many other sites that you can find there. But instead, I would like to wrap up looking back at this development that actually was initiated by a crisis, because Estonia's digitalization started around 1995-96 when Estonia launched the first, I would say, national digitalization initiative called Tiger Leap, and that education modernization initiative did give impetus for the development of digital society of Estonia. So now, 25 years later, I believe we are facing in other digital leap. I guess we can call it COVID leap, and I guess it's time to revisit some of the lessons that we have learned through these 25 years, and also see how these actually fit or could fit into the present situation, because the time has changed, and the challenges that we are facing today are very different from the challenges that we were facing in 1996. But by and large, what is still, I would say, essential is everything related to data and data sharing, data management or data stewardship, because very early on, in early 2000s, Estonia fixed very clear data management principles and also developed a technical solution to support this data sharing. And I am sure that you have all heard of X-Road, but even though the solution as such was developed early 2000s, the philosophy behind it is still relevant, and it has also extended borders. It is a role model for the European interoperability framework, and the solution as such has also been employed by very many governments. The other success factor, I would say, is our national digital identity, as it was then decided that instead of having multiple online authentication and digital signature providing possibilities, we would have only one, and that one solution could be then reused by different organizations, both in the public sector but also in the private sector. And this was important because organizations were at a very different level of digitalization, and this was a way to secure that the digital authentication and digital signature would be secure, that everybody can trust. The third point comes to what brings, I would say, the data interoperability, EID, but also many other initiatives together. And that is a cooperation between the public sector and the private sector. And I wouldn't even call it to a regular public-private partnership where, let's say, the private sector expertise is taken to the public sector, or where the public sector subcontracts private sector to either provide certain expertise or services. It is actually about shared responsibility. Estonian government took the lead in digitalization, but the private sector also stepped in. And a good example here is the basic infrastructure such as data sharing or EID, where also the private sector took a responsibility to develop and maintain these solutions together with the public sector and also use it. And this is something that I believe is even more crucial nowadays, where we see that actually the borders from the eyes of a citizen, the borders between public sector and private sector digitalization are actually diminishing. For a regular citizen, whether the services are provided by public sector or private sector could be the same, but also the virtual world or the virtual sphere and the risks that are there, let's say in the private sector. And of course, here we see these the fear over privacy, security that is related actually to the content and the use of the content by big technology companies. This fear is increasing, and I see that it's essentially or increasingly essential that the public sector and private sector work here together also to deal with some of these fears that our public has nowadays. These are the reflections from what has happened, what we have done and how, but just a few, I would say, introductions to what we are working now and what are the latest developments of our government. Of course, as also mentioned by my colleague, Estonia too is focusing on the live event-based or I would say seamless public services. You can see the list of them. It's related to getting married, having a divorce, going to school, establishing a business, and so forth. The second big, I would say, bulk of categories around AI and the use of AI in the public sector. We also have a repository as we are promoting still the reuse and resharing of already existing solutions and products. The repository is free. You can also actually visit it and see whether there is something useful for the needs of your organization. And the third one, what I would like to bring out is that also concerns I would say the Minister of Foreign Affairs, is related to data embassy, and this is increasingly related to how governments, but also international organizations, collect, maintain, and share the data. And Estonia is the first country in the world to host some of its, or keep some of its data in the territory of another country. And this is something that we are also currently expanding. We are thinking of use cases on how to use these data that are stored currently in Luxembourg. And what is looking ahead, where we are seeing what are the issues that we still need to deal in Estonia, but also globally. I also briefly mentioned about my role here in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. It's actually related to digital foreign policy, because it's our task also to make sure that people trust the digital society, that they feel safe in the virtual world. And this is no longer only let's say a responsibility of the ministry or some few agencies that are responsible for digitalization. It's a responsibility also for the Foreign Service, but of course also the responsibility of private sectors. And I wouldn't go here to detail the risks and opportunities that technologies bring together, but what is also clear for us is that as these technological developments are happening very fast and faster than ever before, we in Estonia, as a small country, need also to collaborate with other countries to keep up with these developments and make sure that our people, our government, our enterprises have the necessary skills and knowledge to make use of these technologies for their benefit, and also following these principles that are dear to our democratic societies. So thank you very much, and I'm looking forward to the Q&A and our further collaboration. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Nele. And now we have a couple of questions already received, and they're mostly about privacy. So Nele, you just mentioned the AI topic. So one of the questions is what's the effects of this privacy and data protection with digital services? How do you ensure that in AI? So maybe you can start with answering to that. Do you think, maybe I should paraphrase, do you think AI somehow affects our privacy or data protection? Do you think that we should apply any extra security measures? Or how this question is being handled on the level of the government?
Kas see oli mulle või?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Thank you for the question. Of course, the use of data and AI is an essential topic, not only in our government, but also in the EU more essentially. And here we have to actually keep in mind how to keep the balance actually between regulating the risks and still guaranteeing that we are on the edge of digital innovation. And I would say that this is the most crucial question at the moment, how to guarantee this balance. On the one hand, to make sure that internet is a safe place, that the data is not misused, that the use of AI is ethical, and so forth. But on the other hand, guaranteeing that we are not losing also our momentum in digital innovation.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Nele. And Liron, do you have any comments to that? And also another question, which was actually directed straight at you, was about cybersecurity. So maybe you can add up AI and cybersecurity matters in one answer.
Okay, I'm not sure I'm the right person to answer the cybersecurity of Israel. We are working together with them to keep our data and our crucial data base safe as it can be. I just want to to say that about the balances about moving data from one ministry to the other, and some of the capabilities of AI. There are a lot of ethic questions. Right now in Israel, if you want to move data from one office to the other, you need to pass two different committees. It's not that easy. It's one of our problems. But meanwhile, for the users, for the citizens itself, we are providing the data into the ask once policy, that we will not ask questions if already the citizens give it to us. And if we want to move it in a form from one place to the other, it's only by the users or by the citizens' decision to move it. Some other data behind the screens are between the different ministries, and there are these commissions that I just talked about.
So did I get it right? Everything is still controlled by the people. There is no artificial intelligence who is managing that in between ministries, for example.
For our main goal, yes, it's not being used as scalable as you just asked.
Great.
There are some other AI platforms and products that are being developed, but it's usually by the same ministry or some other products that are related to one of these subjects, that if it's health or some other issues like that.
Okay, thank you. So I have one more question to Nele, and this is that what could Estonia learn from Israel regarding digitalization? What do you think? Do you have any ideas now, ad hoc?
I don't know in detail the digitalization in Israel, but what I do know is that we can learn and also collaborate in the field of innovation and research and development. And some of these partnerships have also been established. And I also know that Estonia and Israel are also collaborating in the area of cybersecurity. And there is quite a bit of exchange of expertise here between the respective ministries in Israel and Estonia. But I have been always admirer of the research and development capacity and initiatives of Israel. So I believe that here we definitely could learn from Israel.
Yeah, thank you.
I must say that we do share some knowledge, and we are doing a lot of collaboration about how to designing services by live events. We're getting help from Estonia about some questions that we have about our new future policy, about GovMail and so on, and we are very happy from this collaboration.
Yes, we are happy too, and we hope that this collaboration will increase soon. And also after this event, maybe on the business level, we will also have some new cooperations, which we really look forward. So now we will move on to the next block. So I thank you, Nele, and thank you, Liron. And we move to the next block, and we will talk now about the private enterprises. So the two FinTech companies, from one from Estonia and one from Israel, will share their success story with us. So the first one to start is Or Kapelinski from the Israeli enterprise Tenerex. And hello Or.
I don't hear you, sorry.
The floor is yours. You may start.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you for allowing me to participate in this very important webinar. I will try to keep it very, very short and to the point, and leave more room to questions and answers. So I think that the topic of this webinar is how to build a successful fintech ecosystem, and in our opinion, at least in Estonia, the first building block in order to build an established and stable fintech ecosystem is to allow a very good collaborative and stable relationship between regulated fintechs and the local banking ecosystem. You will see later on that who are the founders of our organizations. We always been in the regulated fintech side, and we always had to deal with banks. And I think that this is a very important factor that every country needs to establish when thinking about fintech, about regulating more fintechs and more licensing in the country. So who are Tenerex is actually correspondent banking as a service company. And our vision in one sentence is to allow financial institutions to de-risk a wire transfer and not de-risk country or financial institutions, which I guess both in Israel and Estonia, we learned from the past that the fact that we're a smaller country, the fact that we are very innovative and we use the word in Hebrew, chutzpah, sometimes they gave us problems towards other banks, foreign banks, correspondent banks, and our purpose is to allow to have this ecosystem establish its relationship based on a single transaction and not based on trust and institutional base. We'll move to the next slide. Who we are in TenureX. We are 4 fintech veterans that actually met for a coffee and tried to solve a question between myself and my co-founder Eyal Azulai. I always led the smaller regulated fintechs in countries like Cyprus and Estonia, and Eyal was acquired by BNY Mellon and was the head of innovation of BNY Mellon in the United States. And actually, TenureX was built around the question how a small EMI from Cyprus will ever receive a correspondent banking relationship from BNY in the United States. And this is actually what led us to actually establish TenureX and finding together with our 4 partners the solution. And the solution was actually we spoke about the problem, and the problem is that actually a small regulated fintech will never receive a correspondent banking relationship or will be able to open banking relationship from a reputable big USA bank. I will move to the next slide, please, and I will show you why. Can you help me? It's not working. Another one. Thank you. So the problem that a small financial institution or regulated financial institution will never receive a correspondent banking relationship from a big or a bank today is the fact that there is a malfunction in how wire transfer work. And every regulated fintech in Estonia will know that in order to live, it needs to first establish a bank account with the local Estonian bank that will give a segregated customer's account. The problem is that this local Estonian bank is already in a relationship with a USA bank that gave him or wants to give a dollar account because money cannot move its country of origin. And eventually what's happening is that all the banking system need to trust this new regulated fintech in its KYC, AML, and onboarding because they don't know the customer of the regulated fintech. And the fact that this customer will actually generate wire transfers within these banking accounts without the banks actually having any control or understanding what is it all about. And therefore, in today's world, all this ecosystem, all this relationship are based on trust. And Wise and TransferWise are a good example because they had to work very hard to break this level of trust and actually open bank account in Barclays and other banks that will allow them to offer their services for their customers. So we thought how to break this evil circle of trust of I know you, you know me, and I will trust you. And the solution was, let's break down this relationship into a single transaction. Let's try to avoid any questions of subjective trust based between 2 financial institutions. So actually the answer of TenureX is let's break down this relationship into a single wire. And what we're doing is giving this single number, this single transfer 2 APIs. One is an API that enables all the parties to see enriched data and unify data on each wire transfer. And the other API allows the partners of the banking industry to actually be matched within their risk appetite to this enriched data. And all of this we're actually servicing before the actual transaction is being executed on the grids. So here we allow the parties to establish a relationship that are based on a single wire, having the ability to pre-control and pre-vet every transaction before it actually exposes any of the parties to the risk of actually executing a wire transfer. So this is our solution. I can speak about it for hours, but I will leave more time for question and answers thereafter. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Or
You're
yeah,
welcome.
yeah. It was an unexpected finish, but we will now move on to the Mr. Rivo Uibo, who will talk about Toom, his co-founded enterprise, and then we will look forward to your question and answers, which you can still, the audience, please, you can always ask them in the Q&A, as you already know. So, Rivo, are you ready? And the floor is yours, if you are.
A very good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for having me over here. So my name is Ribo, and I'm one of the co-founders and board members and overall head of business for Toom. And if you ask what does a Toom mean, then Toom means core in Estonian. And this really provides the essence of what we do. So Toom is a modular core banking platform for seamless banking, covering the variety of different retail, business and corporate banking use cases out there in the industry. And when we started to look the banking market, then we saw that if one wants to build or launch the bank of the future, then there are three key elements that one needs to be able to tackle all at once. And those things are applicable either for the large regulated banking player or even for a, let's say, new entrant on the market. So that namely at first, if you choose your core banking infrastructure, it needs to provide an immediate positive impact. There is no time like 5, 7, 10 years time to wait to launch your value proposition. It needs to go to the market now. It needs to go market tomorrow, not after 5 years. Secondly, it needs to support the near short-term goals, so that you need to have a full real-time insight into the reconciliation, into the balance sheet, and also offer your customers with the super individualized contract servicing and terms and conditions out there. And as a third element, you need also to future-proof your banking operations. Because also, as Tavi and others spoke initially, like about the Web3 and so on, then the bank cannot operate anymore on its own. It needs to be also like one node offering its services to other participants in some sort of communication network out there. And after seeing the void on the market, we understood that the anatomy of the next-gen ecosystem is that the banking services and value propositions, which are hyper-parameterized, the services operate in real time, they are offered over the cloud-native formats and delivery methods, and also exposing their capabilities over APIs and third-party ecosystems. This is what all the future is all about. But at the same time, if you look what is out there in terms of the legacy incumbent core banking infrastructure, this is super bad and is exactly controversial to that. So basically, during the summer of 2018, a team of 5 co-founders for Toom met. Or basically, we were running a successful banking consultancy business before, but we met one evening, summer of 2018, and we saw the void on the market. And we came out there with a very bold vision to be the core financial services infrastructure of the future. Because if you really think what it takes for a bank to really select the emerging fintech to be the heart of their business, it's an insanely big trust leap that one needs to do. And this also reflects very well with the concept that what it takes to run a successful fintech ecosystem out there and how to guarantee that different market participants are successful out there. That means that a lot of partnerships are required to be established and also managed in a successful manner. And now when we look a bit down the line and try to understand that what is Toom? Toom is a core banking infrastructure. Basically, you can consider it as a set of Lego bricks so that you can pick and choose the capabilities that are required and which have their own specific characteristics out there. It's modular in design. About this one, I will speak like in few minutes. It's having the characteristic of being API first, meaning that you can connect and expose yourself whatever kind of ecosystem item out there. It's run on whatever kind of cloud provider, and it's compliant by design, because the banking business is so regulated field that one just cannot wake up in the morning with the idea in mind that I want to do something sexy in the fintech or banking tech field and completely ignore the ground rules, how those things are done. But at the same time, when we look at those banking services from the perspective of a regular person on a street, from a street, or even from the business entity's perspective, nobody wakes in the morning up with the idea to do some banking today. But at the same time, the ones who are offering those kind of services, they need a comprehensive infrastructure for this one. If somebody wants to tackle the field in the like foreign exchange areas, like Revolut has done like in the past, then one could pick our transactional multi-currency banking core and you can launch it immediately out there. If you want to offer any kind of financing instruments, let it be like house or home loans, or a bit more project financing scenarios or working capital needs of the businesses or whatsoever, you could have all of those capabilities. If you want to offer the means and ways for people how to pay and consume the services, either you need like physical or virtual debit or credit cards and so forth. So that the Toom's platform is all about catering the needs of such kind of complex instruments in the banking field, so that one does not need to reinvent the wheel. And at the same time also, if we speak about some of the customer use cases out there, so that we have been on the market for less than 3 years, but we have already a tremendous number of happy customers across large geographical span. So that, for example, one super large or even one of the largest Nordic universal banking groups, which consist of like close to 180 cooperative banks beneath. Toom's platform has renovated and modernized and transformed the whole line of business, so that the bank was able to move away from the mainframe-based legacy loan systems to something nimble, because the board tasked the team with the mission to triple the number of originated loans per month. And if they looked what they have as a current assets, they were able to implement the changes in minimum within 6 months time frame and within minimum like 100,000 euros a change. Now with the Toom's offering, they are able to define new instruments seamlessly, and those are made available to whatever kind of ecosystem either out there. Or a global banking group, a lender, like active in 23 countries. Within 5 months, they had equivalent offering of the Revolut's multi-currency account offering over there up and running. Or a very recent win, a super large banking group in the UK who is listed and who is offering their banking capability as a service for more than 180 regulated entities, including the likes of Wise and Coinbase. So that those are like some of the use cases where the Toom's platform is acting as an underlying infrastructure. And if you ask that, can we do it all on our own? No, we cannot. We know what we do well, namely this is this complex part of the core banking infrastructure. But if this concerns the like verification service providers, let it be like Estonian Verif. If we need something in terms of the AML topics or tool sets to fight with the financial fraudsters. Then we have our friends from Salve and so forth. So it's all about knowing what we do well and also knowing when do we incorporate the partners to do something together as a one-stop shop. And as a last element, this is one of the great things like in the modern fintech era, that with the likes of Toom, we are one platform that can support number of different use cases out there, so that an established institution can use us for the technological transformation, like in a gradual manner, or like a new fintech player or emerging tech player can use our capabilities in a like API first, digital first manner. Or if there is some of the industry accounts out there going and trying to provide the contextual embedded banking use cases out there, our platform can be used also for this one. And all of basically the future winners will be the ones who are able to orchestrate the ecosystem. And therefore, we are happy to collaborate and partner with other industry fintechs out there, and happy to provide more information. So that feel free to visit our website, toomplatform.com, or our LinkedIn page, and we are super happy to take the discussions forward. And now super happy to tackle any of the Q&A what you might have.
Thank you, Rivo. Yeah, and we wish you that Toom will become soon a unicorn, as Tavi has mentioned on his slide. So wish you great success. Unfortunately, we don't have the questions here on the open platform right now, but I have received one question into personal chat, and this will be, what is the biggest challenge you see to scale or to expand a company outside of Estonia and likewise Israel? So, or do you have any ideas to that? Well, do you see it complicated? Sure. But you're already more in many countries, but still.
Thank you for this question. I think that the most challenging fact that we see here in Israel, and is what Shmuel already mentioned, is the challenge to find good tech employees and good coders and developers. I think that COVID gave us a tremendous leap towards go-to-market and business development. From our experience, we are a bank tech company, and we are supposed to sell to banks, and all the VCs and our investors were always questionable about the possibility to sell to banks. And now, in a matter of a Zoom meeting and no flights, this became a no challenge. However, scaling with employees and finding the ability to scale further in our product and our vision, this is the problem we have.
Thank you. Ariva, do you also see this problem in Toom? Do you have enough scaled and professionals?
Definitely having access to the, let's say, good talent pool is a super critical factor. And this is also the reason why we started immediately with the multinational set of operations. That if the HQ and engineering site is here in Tallinn, Estonia, then the first commercial office and subsidiary we created to Berlin, Germany, now created a second one to Malaga, Spain early summer, and a few weeks ago also to London. So which means that out of 70 plus employees, we have 16 or 17 different nationalities. And this is kind of fueling also the further growth and, let's say, welcoming environment for the new colleagues. But definitely access to the good talent pool, topic number one. The second one is that to avoid the confusion that even if you come from Estonia, which is not exactly the Switzerland of the world in the banking technology, so that one still needs to promote itself and also work with the public awareness. And the third element is that how to have, let's say, enough belief from the investor community that B2B enterprise is also worth taking a look at. because let's say most of the startups like in the region or area are also like more consumer focused, and definitely took a while to establish this understanding that B2B enterprise has its huge advantages as well. So maybe these three key elements.
Thank you. Do you think the fintech industry or fintech companies have like a special complicated this relation on B2B level? Or it's more or less the same for all industries?
I think, let's say, please.
Please, you are the host.
Yes, thanks. And I think that, let's say, the companies operating in the fintech and banking tech space, they need to take some things with a reservation, because the industry where we operate, it's a heavily regulated space. And also whatever concerns people's money or wealth or health, then those are the aspects where like nobody gives you any kind of discount. So you have to always push like 110%. Like you have to think that how can you deploy it, how scalable, how secure, and how convenient. And also how to keep up with the like ever-changing, like changing in the payment rails, in the regulations and so forth. So that, yes, it's not an easy field, but it's definitely a super fruitful field.
I understand. Or what would you like to add to that?
I agree with everything. I think that fintech become a buzzword, but we as a community needs to start to bring a fintech a very different layers of professionality. There is regulated fintech, there is technology, there is fintech for consumers, and it's infrastructural fintech. And I think that this is something that the business should take forward. And one of the biggest challenge is that fintech today is one single word, but again, the challenge is to find the people who are very focused and know about the very specific segment that we are dealing with fintech. Because, for example, here you saw two different companies. Both of us are selling banking as a service solution, but TUM is helping banks to help their consumers, and we are focused in helping banks to communicate with each other. It looks like fintech, but it's totally two different worlds, and the challenges are totally different.
I understand. I think many people understand fintech as like online banking. That's the thing. But fintech sector is much more than that. And as we heard also from Tavi, who showed us where and what in which field is still fintech. So the world is full of possibilities as well and challenges. But maybe just one single short question, and to you first. Do you think it's easy? So let's say I have a very bright idea and I want to open up a fintech in Israel. Do you think it's easy to enter the market and to expand?
I think that Shmuel said it before, and this is why Israel and Estonia are so common. To open a fintech in Israel, it's easy, but I don't know if you will ever be profitable if you will focus in the Israeli market alone, because we are also a very small country, and it's maybe good for testing, but you cannot scale. Fintech is a scale business. But what we see today is that to have a good idea is not enough. You need a lot of investment. You need to build a fintech company and bring it to MVP, to product. Takes much more resources than to build a nice app or any other startup. So I would say deep pocket, a lot of patience, and a go-to-market which is scalable after you are sure that you have enough firepower to scale.
Thank you. Riva, do you agree with that? Do I need more than just an idea?
You need a lot more than just an idea, and couldn't agree more with all what you just said. And maybe let's say the final item on top of the list is that you need a lot of resilience. You will meet like hundreds and hundreds of roadblockers, like both when meeting with investors, also when like trying to overcome the skepticism, like even when sometimes entering some of the banks, even when you have, let's say, a long-lasting successful career behind your backs. So that's why, let's say, a lot of positivity, having fun while doing this, and let's say, enjoying the game, because that's the way how the game is played.
Thank you. In any case, I enjoyed this discussion with you right now, and thank you for your input. And I think the audience has also made some thoughts and can now also access to you. Either it will be partnerships or maybe even employment opportunities. As we see, the companies are always looking for some bright talent. So if you feel like it's about you, so contact Rivo or and now we will actually, we are at the end of our meeting. Thank you once again, guys. And I will move on to some closing remarks. So first of all, I just want to thank you, everyone who participated tonight. Don't forget, please, and one more reminder that you're still welcome to make use of our expo and the chat option. This will remain available for you 3 months on this platform, or you may just find the contacts in the expo. And these are the contacts of the people who were happy and were available for any contact from you. So any cooperation, and as I just said, maybe employment opportunities, whatever applies to you, just take your chances and use the step. So once again, thank you to all the speakers as well, and I hope that this event has provided you with some valuable ideas. So use your creativity, courage, and communication skills, and maybe you will be the next one who will build a big fintech unicorn. Yeah, that's all. If you have any questions to organizers, to whoever, please also contact me or Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Estonia or Business Diplomacy Unit. So ladies and gentlemen, we would like to say thank you, aitäh, and toda raba for being part of this great collaboration. Stay healthy and see you hopefully next time. Thank you.